It's beginning to get heated in our office, Jake.
It's always heated.
I know, as soon as you come back. As we've started putting together our All-Australian team, which will be out next week. And there are obviously some standouts and locks, as there tend to be, but a lot of debate on a few positions. Ruck, your favourite position. Small, or what Champion Data likes to call general forward.
Yeah.
Wing is obviously always a bit of a controversial one. But, Jake, you're firmly, it seems, in the Rowan Marshall camp as being the All-Australian ruck this year. But Christian is not having a bar of it. And there's been a bit of back and forth, and within the office as well, a bit of back and forth. I kind of just want to get your thoughts on why.
Why Rowan Marshall should get the nod over Max Gawn?
Yeah.
How about he's been better this year than Max Gawn?
Oh, shut it up. Let's we'll see you next week on the podcast.
And I think he's been better in just about every area, except the areas, the Champion Data numbers of rating points and ranking points and these things that will spit out Gawn at the top. But I think if you look through all the raw data, except just raw hit-outs, which don't really mean anything because we know that most of the time they don't go to advantage anyway, it's Marshall that comes out on top. He wins more of the ball, he has more clearances, he tackles more, he gets around the ground more, he's taken more contested marks, kicked more goals.
He hasn't taken more contested marks than Max Gawn, has he?
I'm pretty sure he has. I'm pretty sure he has. We'll get back to
good radio, by the way.
We'll get back to it.
But look, there are a few others. So it's not just Gawn, and Gawn's obviously, the incumbent. I think obviously English last year got the nod, but over the course of many years, 5-6 years, it's been Max Gawn, and now that there are a couple of people sort of coming out, we have Darcy Cameron in the conversation. You have Tristan Sherry in the conversation.
So that's why I'm probably
I'll just correct that. Sorry,
I was padding for you.
Gawn has taken more contested marks. Marshall has taken more marks inside 50. That's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
But yes.
So that's the one for me. Is I'm kind of stuck in the middle. I'm pretty easy who you put in the All-Australian team. It won't affect me. I'm not one that I don't get as emotionally invested in the All-Australian team as some other people do. But I sort of sit in the middle of it, and we get queries. I deal with you guys. I deal with Channel 7. I deal with
Who's the hardest to work with?
No.
Oh,
he's going to sit in the middle again. We don't need to go there. We'll just stick to the All-Australian ruckman while we're talking about them. But that's the funny thing to me is I think 3 weeks ago I was asked to compare Darcy Cameron. Can he get in ahead of Max Gawn? So I did some numbers. 2 weeks ago someone else asked me, Tristan Sherry, can he get in ahead of Max Gawn? And now today I come here and Jake's still saying the Max Gawn name, but he's just added Rowan Marshall is better than Max Gawn, isn't he? So I just go back and say, all three of you have given me the same name 3 times over Max Gawn. But you're all just trying to find, you're all just bored of Max Gawn being the best ruckman. So it's like, I'm big on just that little last 3 weeks has just opened my eyes of, there is no clear-cut number 2. You're telling me Rowan Marshall's a clear-cut number 1. I was being told by someone else that Tristan Sherry was a clear-cut number 1. But they're both of you are asking me, can you compare him to Gawn, though? Yeah. Because you know who you need to compare him to. But I think Gawn is the best.
But that's the thing. But Gawn seems to be grandfathered into these. It's like Tom Mitchell. It's Tom Stewart. It's just like, we need to put someone at halfback. It's just going to be Stewart. Well, he hasn't really been that good this year. Not talking about this year.
Spoiler, he's not in our All-Australian team.
But Gawn just seems like it's almost the lazy answer to say, we'll just go with Gawn.
So I'll give you the 4 areas of the game. So you went with some of his averages and things like that. So I think his disposals is 1.2 more or whatever. But you look at 4 areas of the game. So ball winning, actual ruck work, scoreboard impact, and defensive stuff. And I've got 5 ruckmen here. I've added in Oscar McInerney, who's been thrown around as well, but you can almost see once you go through these numbers, he's a fair way out. But Gawn, Cherry, Marshall, Darcy Cameron, Oscar McInerney. So if you look at the ball winning, 2 of them elite. That's Gawn and Marshall. Cherry and Cameron are both above average for winning the ball around the ground. Oscar McInerney is just average for a ruckman.
That's ball winning.
That's ball winning. For your actual ruck work, Gawn is above average. The rest of those names are all average or below average for actually. The best tap ruckman is like Jared Witts, who's not in. So for Jared Witts and trying to think who else the other elite tap ruckman might be. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they're not in the All-Australian discussion. So Gawn rates above average for winning a hit-out, where the hit-outs go to, how much value you get from them. So he's above average for that. Marshall is below average for his actual ruck work.
No wonder you like
selector. Is the selector.
Okay, but then I'll throw this back at you. If that's so important, then why not go with Jared Witts?
Hang on. That's just one part of it. So Gawn's got him. He's 2 brackets above him in the ball winning, in the ruck work. Sorry, in the ball winning, they're both elite. Scoreboard impact, Gawn is above average, Cherry average, Marshall average, Cameron average, McInerney above average as well. So McInerney can hit the scoreboard. So Gawn, even with Marshall on ball winning, 2 brackets above him in the ruck work, 1 bracket above him in the scoreboard impact things. Defensive work, Gawn's elite, Marshall above average, Cherry above average, Cameron is the other elite ruckman for his defensive stuff, and McInerney average. So Gawn beats him in they're even in ball winning. Gawn beats him in ruck work, beats him on scoreboard impact, and beats him in the defensive things that he's doing. So there's 4 parts of the game where Gawn is, a couple of those he's 2 brackets ahead of Marshall. It sort of shows you, I think it's just the whole, we're bored. We're bored of Max Gawn doing the same thing over and over, so we're trying to find someone that's finally overtaken him. You look at, breaking down the 4 parts of the game, and Gawn is still either equal best or the best of those 5 names in each of those categories. So, I still look at it and think there's a lot of raw numbers that you can sort of get Darcy Cameron up there, and you can get Cherry up there if you just want a contested ball beast. You put Cherry in there. If you want one of the best intercept markers, you put Darcy Cameron in there. But for the 4 facets of the game that they're going to have to play, Gawn is the one that's got probably all 4 covered for me.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's Marshall head and shoulders clear of everybody else. I'm just saying I think it is, at worst, a dead heat. And I think it is. If it is a dead heat, ties go to the guy that hasn't won it, that hasn't been selected before.
Why?
Why should? Because then it.
But if you're the incumbent, have you not re-earned it?
No, because I think because that's where I think people get sucked into. Like I said before about, well, he's been there before, so we'll just give it to him again. I think that's the lazy approach.
But he's been as good. So this is his third bet. So again, what I'm about to say, I'm almost going to kill straight away, because you shouldn't worry about what you've done previously. It doesn't matter what Max Gawn has done.
Yeah.
But he has got into 6 All-Australian teams. This is his 3rd best career, numbers wise, and looking at all the
third highest rated
season, and sort of
But he may not have had the competition like this in previous seasons.
Yeah, so exactly. So that's why you got to take out.
Because there is only really one. I mean, we know we've seen 2 spots before, but generally it's 1 spot.
Yeah.
So, the competition may not have been there in previous seasons.
Could you sneak them both in?
Well, it's definitely on the cards. I wouldn't have both. I wouldn't want 2. I mean, I wouldn't have 1 if it was up to me. But I think I think 2 is on the cards this year. I think I wouldn't be stunned, but I think it's Marshall, and I think so much of it is just going on. If you put it this way, if you only started watching footy this year, you've never seen anything before, and you watched the whole year, watched every Melbourne game, and you watched every St Kilda game, you could not tell me that you had an opinion that you would come out of it right now and say that Max Gawn guy is way better than Rowan Marshall. I don't think you could say that at all. I think you would look at them both and say they're both pretty much the same player.
Let us know what you think.
In terms of what they're doing for their team and their quality.
At Footy Tips on Twitter, we do need to move on.
I truly believe that. And I think so much of the Gawn love is what he's done in previous seasons.
I think that's clouded you. I think you're going the other way. You're thinking that everyone's just obsessed with his previous season.
They
just
are.
Forget about everything that happened.
Because every time, and you know how I can prove to you that because from the first time Max Gawn touched the ball, round 1 or opening round this year, did Melbourne play an opening round? They did. From the first time Max Gawn was in the centre bounce, the umpire, the commentators, every fan, everyone's fawning over him, as they've done for 8 years now. Rowan Marshall has had every bit of the season that Max Gawn has, if not better. He deserves to be an All-Australian this year.
There's been no standout general forward this year, I think. There's been a few that have been really good, but there's been no one that sort of put their hand up and said, I have to be the forward pocket in the All-Australian.
And this is why, I think this might be a nice segue, not to pat myself on the back, but this was why I thought this was a great bet I made with Jared at the start of the year, if you remember. Do you remember he said Hayden Young's more likely to make the All-Australian team than Brent Daniels.
Okay, is that
and
what he said?
I was very confident on Brent Daniels because I said Hayden Young's competing against 50 great midfielders for a spot. Brent Daniels, okay, you might have thought going to the East, probably competing with his teammate Toby Green for a spot, but we know Green's had a below average year for his standards. And who else is there? You got Charlie Cameron. You've got
Tyson Stengel.
Dylan Moore's been good, but at the start of the year, did you think at the start of the year, Dylan Moore, he's going to take some beating for to knock him off an All-Australian spot? There was no one really. I think it was Cameron and Green that were they're probably the 2 favourites, and then you could throw a blanket over.
So forget about the favourites. It doesn't matter what they came into the season with.
That's what I'm saying. There's fewer players to compete against. That's why I don't like having wingers, traditional wingers on the team because You cannot. I don't want to go through all this again. But you cannot tell me who would you rather have on a wing, Massimo D'Ambrosio or Zach Merritt?
That's not what the
We're getting
All-Australian
off track.
team.
We're getting
That's
off
not what
topic.
the All-Australian team is picking the best team in position for the. You're rewarding players for playing in that position.
We never truly do that in all 20.
You're picking a different team. Yeah, exactly. So they've got it wrong 20 times.
Who would you have first picked as your general forward?
I have Brent Daniels just ahead of Dylan Moore and Tyson Stengel very,
you have
very
all
close.
three in that?
I have all three in there.
So you're probably sacrificing one of those midfielders that you chuck at half forward like you normally do.
I'm not, yeah.
So you'd have Tyson.
That's what they do,
so
but
would
that's
you
what I'm
have
saying.
Chad Warner, Isaac
Would you,
Heaney,
yeah,
one of
would
these
you have
guys that
Tyson
they just-
Stengel at half forward or Chad Warner?
I'd have Chad Warner as my fourth foot. Like I'd have to get those three small forwards in there.
So
before I
you're
would
also
even
you're gonna
consider
have
Chad
got to
Warner.
have Hogan in there and
But
and
you're
Charlie.
I think me and you think of the All-Australian team very differently. I'm picking them for rewarding their positions, not to go out and play a game and to make sure that Zach Merritt's getting rewarded because he's such a good player. No, he didn't play in that position, so you're not like. To me, there should be 5 names in each position, and they're the only 5 names. You can't just go, okay, I'm going to move this guy to here, and it's like, no, these guys have played in their position. That's what we're trying to reward.
But the position
it's
should
not the best
only
player. It's the best player.
We need
in
to
that
wrap up the
position.
All-Australian chat soon.
Yeah.
So what's the question?
Well, I don't know. We've kind of run out of time.
We've kind of gone all over the place with it.
Small forwards. How many get in?
I think 2. I don't think there hasn't been enough. And as I said, I was very big on Brent Daniels at the start of the year. I think he's a massive chance to get in, but I don't think the quality's been there where you put 3 in. I think 3's too many. There haven't been 3 standouts. There hasn't really been one standout. So I'd go with 2.
So is it not just the best of the rest though that you picked the best 3?
That's what I'm saying. You got 3 forwards. It doesn't matter how. I don't know. Yeah, you're
So
sort
you're-
of trying to
you're-
compare them to the rest of the competition. It's
So
just
we're going to
reward
go.
the 3
We're going to
best
go
small
with.
forwards.
We're going to go with. So if you say Daniels is the best, Moore's second best, and who'd you say?
Stengel.
Stengel's the third best. You're going to go with Tyson Stengel at either on the bench or in the half forward pocket or half forward flank, and you're going to have Bontempelli or you're going to have Warner missing out.
So I'm going to have Stengel. I'll go through Stengel, who I've got listed here. I'm going to have the number 1 forward 50 ground ball get player in my team, who's had 12 more forward 50 ground balls than any other player. Number 1 goals of any small forward. He's had the second most forward 50 disposal of any player. The only player that's had more is Jesse Hogan, who's going to win a Coleman medal. Equals second in the competition for forward 50 clearances and equal 8th for forward 50 marks in the top 3 for a general forward. So I'm going for that guy in my team, the guy that can win the ball off the ground and has kicked goals all year. That is Tyson Stengel. He gets a spot in the forward line on that team.
The full
So
team drops next week at ESPN.com.
But hang on, but the way you were saying that, it makes it sound like he should be the first pick then.
Yeah, well, he's close to. He stays at home more than Moore and Daniels. Moore and
They're
Daniels
different roles.
are
You're
more.
allowed to have different roles within the forward.
But- so
He
Moore
is
and
my
Daniels
deep.
move-
He's
Moore-
my
we gotta
deep
move-
general forward. If that's what you want to
But
talk
Moore and
about.
Daniels move up the ground more, right? So they're more. But
Half forward flanks.
and they're both great players, but you cannot have Moore and or Daniels in the team at the expense of having Chad Warner in the team.
Okay.
Full team dropping next
You
week at
can't.
ESPN.com.au.